Welcome to the first episode of A to Z Legal Services Podcasts. Useful, concrete, and purposeful information.
Welcome to the deep dive. Navigating a divorce. Well, it can feel like one of life's most challenging journeys, truly. It's a huge step towards a new chapter, but often layered with unexpected complexities.
Absolutely. And many people think it's just about the paperwork, but it's so much more emotional than that.
Exactly. Our mission today is really to show why understanding both sides of it, the legal and the emotional right from the get-go, is kind of your secret weapon.
It helps you cut through the noise.
Right. Cut through the confusion, the rumors.
Yeah.
We want to give you clear, essential insights into the divorce process, specifically here in California.
Based on solid information.
So by the end of this deep dive, you should have a good foundational understanding of, what to do first, the key legal things in California, and maybe answers to some common worries.
Sounds good.
Okay, let's unpack this.
And that dual nature we mentioned, the legal and emotional, that's precisely why having clear, reliable information is just so vital. Yeah. It's not just a legal procedure with forms and deadlines. It's also a profoundly emotional passage. Understanding that helps you avoid bad advice.
Advice that could actually make things harder.
Exactly. It can add to the stress, the emotional burden, if you're not careful.
So let's jump right in then. A question we hear all the time, probably the first thing on many people's minds is, okay, I want a divorce. What do I actually do first?
Yeah, it's a completely natural place to start. But the answer isn't as simple as, just filling out a form. It really isn't.
Right.
The absolutely crucial first step is genuinely assessing your specific situation, really looking at it.
Okay, so what does that involve? Like, what questions should you be asking yourself?
Well, key things right out of the gate are, is this likely to be a divorce where both of you are generally on the same page, willing to cooperate? Or is your partner maybe unwilling to sign the papers? Is it going to be more adversarial? That changes things significantly.
And the big ones.
And crucially, are there shared children involved? Or joint assets like property or bank accounts? Each one of those factors fundamentally shapes the path you'll need to take.
Okay, I can definitely see how understanding those personal dynamics is just fundamental before you even think about forms or lawyers.
Exactly.
So what's the risk if someone doesn't do that assessment first? Maybe they're just feeling overwhelmed.
Well, the biggest mistake is kind of moving forward blindly without a real strategy.
Right.
It can lead to, unnecessary legal costs, definitely prolonged emotional distress, and maybe even unfavorable outcomes simply because those first steps weren't tailored.
Because you didn't match the approach to the reality of the situation.
Precisely. In California, divorce is a legal process. It requires specific documents, you have to stick to important timelines, and you're making really significant decisions about your future.
And like we said, that whole legal process is just layered with immense emotional weight, which brings us back to why accurate info, not just hearsay or, what your neighbor said.
Right. Even well-meaning advice can be inaccurate.
Exactly. Accurate information is vital for navigating it successfully. It really empowers you during what can feel like a pretty disempowering time.
Absolutely.
Now, here's where it gets really interesting. Let's talk about the 3 essential initial steps you should take. Maybe things people overlook.
Yes, absolutely. These are foundational. First, gather your information.
Okay. What does that mean specifically?
It means really compiling all your personal and legal documents. Think birth certificates, marriage certificate, details of all bank accounts, investment accounts, retirement funds, information about shared property, cars, everything.
It sounds like a lot of work up front.
It can be, but it's not just about being tidy. It's about having a complete, accurate picture of the marital estate.
And if you don't do that meticulously at the start, what's the potential headache?
Oh, it can be a huge headache. Without that clear picture of assets and debts, you might make poor financial decisions in the settlement.
Or just drag things out.
Exactly. The process can get significantly delayed, costing you more time, more money, more stress. Surprises that pop up later in a divorce are almost never good news.
Okay, step 1, gather everything. What's next?
Second, consult professionals. Seek guidance from experts.
Lawyers, paralegals.
Could be either, depending on the complexity. But the key is finding people who not only know the law, but also communicate effectively, maybe in your preferred language if that's relevant. And crucially, experts who truly understand your unique circumstances. It's not just about legal knowledge, it's about finding someone who gets your reality.
So it's more than just technical skill. It's about finding someone who connects with you, who understands the emotional side too.
Precisely. A good professional should listen, understand your goals and concerns, and maybe even advise you against a certain path if it doesn't align with your practical or emotional needs.
That makes sense. An ethical professional guides you towards the best path for you.
Exactly, even if it's not the most aggressive or, the most standard route. And third, define your path.
Define your path.
Yeah, try to clearly determine as best you can early on if your divorce is likely to proceed as an amicable, cooperative process. Maybe you and your spouse are mostly on the same page.
Huh?
Or, alternatively, if you anticipate needing support for a more contentious situation where reaching agreement might be really difficult.
And knowing that up front helps how?
Well, that initial assessment impacts everything. How you approach the legal steps, the kind of professional support you might need, even how you prepare emotionally.
That clarity sounds incredibly valuable. But, for someone already in a really difficult, contentious situation, can they truly define their path early on? Doesn't that definition sometimes shift?
Oh, it absolutely can evolve. Definitely. Things change. But making that initial assessment still helps immensely.
How so?
Even in tough situations, you can define your desired outcome, or at least your starting position, and think about the level of support you'll need. Knowing you might be heading into a fight allows you to prepare differently than if you're hoping for a smooth negotiation.
Right, it sets expectations and strategy.
Exactly. These 3 steps, gathering info, consulting pros, defining your path, they genuinely empower you. You approach the journey with a strategy, not just reacting.
Okay, that's really practical advice.
And that's actually where services like A to Z Legal Services, who provided the content for this deep dive, can really step in.
How do they help with those steps?
Well, they assist with each part of the journey. They can help with, completing and filling out all those necessary legal forms accurately.
Which can be daunting.
Very. They can also help manage situations where the other party is maybe uncooperative, not signing things, not responding.
Okay.
And if it comes to it, they can assist with presenting the case to the court or preparing you for that process.
So it sounds like they offer support across the board, whether things are straightforward or more complex.
That's the idea, yes. Comprehensive support.
Now let's shift gears a bit and address some of those really common questions. The ones people ask right away when they first start thinking about divorce. Concerns lots of our listeners might have right now.
Yes, these are definitely the frequently asked questions. They come up constantly. Finding clear answers early on is so important.
So what are some of the big ones you hear?
Well, A to Z Legal Services, for instance, often helps people with questions like, do I actually need an attorney to get a divorce? That's a big one.
Mm-hmm.
Also, what happens if my partner just refuses to sign the papers? That causes a lot of anxiety.
I bet.
Then practical things like, can the whole divorce process be done in Spanish? If that's someone's primary language.
Important for accessibility.
Definitely. And the ever-present question, how much time does this whole divorce process usually take?
Okay, those are huge. Let's tackle a couple right now. First off, do I need an attorney? What's the real answer?
Well, look, it's not always legally required, especially in California for simpler cases.
Yeah.
However,
There's
often a but. An attorney provides really invaluable guidance, especially if your situation is complex, shared assets, kids, maybe disagreements. Their expertise can be crucial.
And for simpler cases.
For simpler, truly uncontested cases, sometimes paralegal services can assist very effectively with the forms and procedure. It really depends on the specifics and your comfort level navigating the system.
Okay. And what about that scenario people dread? My partner won't sign.
Yeah.
What happens then? Are you stuck?
No, you're not stuck. California law has clear procedures for this. It's not ideal, but it's manageable.
How does it work, generally?
Typically, it involves formally serving them with the divorce papers through proper legal channels. If they receive the papers and then fail to respond within a specific time frame,
Well, like they just ignore it.
right, then you can usually proceed with what's called a default judgment. The court can grant the divorce based on your petition because the other party didn't participate.
Does it take longer?
It might make the process take a bit longer, yes, and potentially require more direct court involvement on your part, but it absolutely doesn't stop you from moving forward with the divorce.
That must be a massive relief for people worried about that.
It really is. It's important to know there are options.
What about the language question? Can it all be done in Spanish?
Yes, absolutely, provided the legal service provider you choose offers that. A to Z Legal Services, for example, has a team fluent in Spanish and can handle the entire process, initial talks, documents, communication, all in Spanish.
Great to know. And finally, the timeline question. How long does it take? the million-dollar question.
It really varies so much. Depends on complexity, whether it's contested, how cooperative people are, court schedules, lots of factors.
But is there a minimum?
Yes. There's a mandatory waiting period in California.
Mm-hmm.
Your divorce cannot be legally finalized until at least 6 months, and 1 day have passed from the date the divorce petition was officially filed and served on your spouse.
6 months and a day. Minimum.
That's the absolute floor. But realistically, many divorces, especially contested ones, can certainly take much longer than that. Sometimes significantly longer.
Okay, those answers definitely clear up some major points. And actually, thinking about timelines and where to start, one of the most foundational questions, even before you worry about lawyers or timelines, is simply, where can I legally file for divorce in the first place?
That's a critical point, yes.
Yep.
Jurisdiction. Where can you file? In California, the primary requirement boils down to something called domicile or residency.
Okay, domicile. What does that mean in plain English?
Essentially, it means where you've established your legal home with the intention to remain there, at least for the foreseeable future. For a California court to even have the authority, the jurisdiction to hear your divorce case,
Yes.
at least one of the spouses must have physically lived in California for a continuous period of 6 months immediately before filing the divorce petition.
6 continuous months.
Right.
And it only has to be one spouse.
Correct. It's not necessary for both spouses to live here or even own property here. Just one of you needs to meet that 6-month residency rule.
And they have to be living here right up until they file.
Immediately prior to filing, yes.
Mm-hmm.
That 6-month period needs to be continuous and right before the petition is submitted.
That's really interesting. So what's fascinating here is this means California courts could potentially handle divorces even if the marriage itself happens somewhere else entirely.
Precisely. As long as that residency rule is met by one spouse.
So say you got married in, I don't know, Mexico or another state.
Mm-hmm.
If one of you moves to California and lives here for 6 straight months, you could potentially file for divorce here.
Exactly right. Let's take a specific example, kind of like one from our source material.
Yeah.
Imagine a couple married in Mexico.
Okay.
Things break down, and maybe one spouse, let's say the wife, moves to California, perhaps for safety reasons or for the kids' schooling, whatever the reason. She establishes residency here, maybe just renting an apartment. If she lives here continuously for 6 months, even if her husband remains primarily in Mexico, she can file for divorce in California. The California courts can have the power, the competence to hear and decide on that divorce.
Wow. Even if the marriage was celebrated in Mexico and the other spouse isn't here?
Correct. As long as she meets that 6-month residency requirement. It's a powerful aspect of California family law.
That really clarifies the court's basic power to hear the case itself. But you mentioned something else.
Right. So just because the court can hear the divorce case doesn't automatically mean it can make all types of orders, especially ones that directly affect the spouse who doesn't live here.
Okay. There's another layer.
Exactly. This is what we call personal jurisdiction. It's about whether the court has authority over the other person, specifically.
And why is that important? What can't the court do without it?
Well, without personal jurisdiction over the out-of-state spouse, the court might be able to legally dissolve the marriage itself, grant the divorce, but it might not be able to do things like divide property located outside California or order that spouse to pay child support or spousal support.
Oh, okay. So personal jurisdiction is key for financial orders and dividing assets outside the state. That's a huge deal.
It's absolutely critical for those aspects, yes.
So how does a California court get personal jurisdiction over someone who doesn't live here?
Good question. There are a few ways. One is if your spouse is legally served with the divorce papers while they happen to be physically present in California, even temporarily.
Like if they visit.
If they visit voluntarily, yes, and are properly served then. Another way is if they explicitly consent to the court's jurisdiction, maybe by filing a response in the case without objecting to jurisdiction.
Okay.
And then there's a more complex idea called minimum contacts.
Minimum contacts. Sounds legalistic.
It is a bit, but the basic idea is, does the out-of-state spouse have enough significant ties to California?
Such as
owning real estate here, having bank accounts in California, conducting significant business here, maybe the kids live here, things that show a substantial connection to the state. If those minimum contacts exist, the court might find it has personal jurisdiction.
Okay, so if I'm following this, step 1 is the 6-month residency for one spouse that gets the divorce case into a California court.
Right, that's subject matter jurisdiction.
But step 2 is personal jurisdiction over the other spouse, which depends on things like serving them here, their consent, or these minimum contacts. And that determines if the court can make orders about money or property outside California that actually stick.
You've absolutely got it. That's the distinction. It's a really important nuance and frankly one that many people overlook when they first start thinking about filing.
That is crucial to understand. Wow. Okay, well, if something you heard today resonates with your situation, if any of this sounds familiar, please remember you genuinely don't have to navigate this path on your own.
Absolutely. And thanks for joining us for this deep dive. Don't forget we've drawn this information from our sources, and you can often get more specific paralegal guidance tailored to your unique circumstances.
Yes, definitely seek that out. You can call A to Z Legal Services at 626-510-3339.
That's 626-510-3339.
You can also write to them at info@aslegal.us. That's info@azlegal.us.
info@aslegal.us.
Or visit their website, www.aslegal.us.
That's www.azlegal.us.
And they're on social media, too.
Right. You can also find them on Facebook and Instagram. Look for the verified profiles under A to Z Legal Services. That's A to Z Legal Services.
There are lots of ways to connect.
Definitely. And just a final thought to leave you with. Remember, divorce isn't necessarily an end. It truly can be the beginning of a new stage, maybe a challenging one, but a new one. And you absolutely don't have to walk through it alone.